say Shan and Buka were married by Miracle Center. That's just an example. Yeah. So once we get that return, it is entered in the National Marriage Register, and we are sure. So at that point, when you need it, you are trying to recover pension, insurance. You're trying to travel abroad as a family. These embassies write correspondences to us because we have couples. You can imagine staying in a relationship for 20 years. You think you are married, yet actually you are not married, because that if you got into a church that is not licensed and they issue a certificate, that certificate is null and void. And you will see that in the Marriage Act. If the relationship I'm going into is not a prohibited kind of thing, sister, brother, and that kind of thing, civil marriage, for example, it's very possible. And it will be a valid marriage.
Hello everyone, my name is Shan, and welcome to the Queens and Kings podcast. Later after we talk about what we're talking about now.
It's a yes or no answer.
Later after I conclude.
It's a yes or no answer. Why do we keep it for later?
It will depend.
Depend on what?
You're welcome. Cancer, please.
Yes. Viewers, it's a pleasure to be here again. Shan, thank you for hosting me. Boka, is good to see you again, and I look forward to a very interesting discussion. And I'm very sure by the end of our podcast, our viewers will have quite a lot to learn. My name is Daniel Nasasira, and I work with the Uganda Registration Services Bureau. And part of what we do is basically registering marriages. Buka asked a very interesting question at the beginning of the show. And I'm sure Shan is going to introduce that, and we will delve into it today. And by the time we finish, we will all be somewhere as far as that topic is concerned. Yes.
Thank you so much.
I'm not going to introduce myself. I asked a question and you're like it at the end of the podcast. But these people are willing to pay for the marriage certificate. So don't worry about the finances involved.
No, I'll pay for it. Why would I ask people to pay for my marriage?
Then you should ask me to marry you.
Later. Since you don't want to introduce yourself. Me, I'm going to introduce the topic. But besides, he's called Buka Chimi, a.k.a.
No, AKAs are for the sweet gangster.
Okay, thank you so much. So today we're going to be talking about very interesting things. Is it interesting?
Very.
Thank you. We're going to talk about
with
marriage.
The look in your eyes.
We are going to be talking about marriage, and I think each one of us is going to share their own opinion, and then the council will give us the right thing about what.
I think the council should be the one to tell us what marriage is.
Then we'll be
the types of marriages. Me, I'm going to be so I asked you to marry me
later,
and then you're like, we are going to be agreeing or disagreeing.
Me to marry him. We are going to talk about marriage, what marriage is, and answer is going to help us out. And then, I think we shall also be sharing a little we know about. We're going to be talking about marriage, the different types of marriage. We're also going to know how we can register our marriages and the reasons as to why we should register our marriages.
Yes.
And to start with, Council is going to start with telling us what marriage is and the different types of marriages and everything. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shan. So a marriage is a union between a man and a woman. There are quite a number of definitions of a marriage, but in Uganda, marriage is defined according to the Marriage Act.
Yeah.
And it is a union between a man and a woman. That is the legal definition of a marriage. But I know when you go to your church, your pastor, your bishop, your reverend will have a definition of marriage. Probably they will say it is a union of a man and a woman for life,
Yeah.
And when you go to the mosque, the district Qadi or the Imam will also have a definition of a marriage. Probably they will say a marriage is a union between one man and up to, I think, 4 women.
Yeah.
Yes. So when you go back to your village, to the roots down there,
Yeah.
the village chief will tell you, for us, we have no problem. Buka having Shan and 5 other women because it is a customary. So marriage can be defined in quite a number of ways. But for purposes of this discussion, we are looking at the jurisdiction of Uganda. And in Uganda, a marriage is a union between a man
And a woman.
and
And
a
a
woman.
woman.
Yes.
So you've already defined the types of marriages,
I was still defining marriage.
defining marriage.
Yes.
But then this thing of bring cows and stuff.
That's customary. It's part of the types of marriages.
So you can skip that bit.
No, he was still explaining marriage, and he's going to take us through the types of marriages.
Exactly.
Then we should get to the types of marriages.
Thank you.
So in Uganda, we have 5 types of marriages.
Eh.
We have, yes, we have the church marriage.
That's one.
We have the customary marriage. We have the Muslim / Mohammedan marriage. Then we have the Hindu marriage. And we have what we call civil marriage. So those are the 5 types of marriages recognized in Uganda.
Council, we need to understand. Like,
Yes,
now I've even forgotten the types of marriages you've mentioned.
yes.
I need to understand what happens in the civil marriage.
Customary.
So briefly, I will take you through what each of these 5 are about. A church is what we all know.
Yeah.
You go to a church and you'll be married. One man and one woman are married by a celebrant. And then you have the Muslim marriage where you can be allowed to marry up to 4 women. We then have the Hindu marriage. I think all of us have seen some Hindu temples around in Kampala. Yes, Baha'i. We have
We also have one around that Queen's Way.
Oh, the one next to
Next to
next to former ShopRite.
yeah. So we have the Hindu marriages. Then we have the customary marriages. Customary marriage basically is marriage according to the lady's custom, yeah? Custom. And then we have so the final type of marriage is the civil marriage, which happens before a register of marriages. So if you are within Kampala, the register of marriages is the Registrar General. We have a directorate called the Directorate of Civil Registration, where you can apply, get a date, and the Register of Marriages will marry you. Then outside Kampala, when you are, in the villages, you can go to your chief administrative officer because they are designated Register of Marriages in the districts outside Kampala, and they will be able to. So the type of marriage that is celebrated when you are before the CAO or the Registrar General is what we call civil marriage. Yes.
So what are the most common marriages in Uganda?
Common marriages in Uganda, of course, is the church marriage, the Muslim marriage, and lately civil marriage has also been really, Ugandans are taking keen interest in it. So we are seeing large numbers of people coming in. Yeah. Initially, it was probably a white and a Ugandan, but recently we are having quite a huge number of Ugandan couples, both the man and the woman, coming through to get married. So I guess the message of civil marriage has also finally, people are taking it up. So I think we're on the right track.
So just a quick one, yeah?
Yes, please.
Doesn't that drive us away from our cultural norms?
Thank you.
I don't know whether it does, because you see, marriage is a very interesting institution.
Mm-hmm.
You can never really tell what you see. When I get married customarily, I could choose probably to move to the church to get a blessing, or to convert my customary marriage into a church marriage. Or if I decide to go to the register of marriages to get the point is that it is really a voluntary union. So whether it is taking us away from our cultural norms is a discussion I think that probably we need to have with the youngsters that are getting married, get their opinions on whether that is the case. But I think it is something more to do with the couple. What are their interests? What are they looking at? Are they looking at paying? Is it still feasible today, as it was probably 100 years ago, to pay, dowry worth 100 cows? You see? Is it still feasible to, if we are in love and I want to marry this lady, do I still have to look for millions of shillings before I can, finally formalize this? Because as we are going to see in the discussion we are going to be having, there are quite a lot of risks to stay in a marriage union without, formally, formally getting into that union where you have legal capacity, for example, as a lady or as a man, to, take what belongs to you as someone, because you're contributing to this marriage. As a couple, you could be contributing directly or indirectly. Directly by doing house chores, for example, cooking for your man, doing the laundry, or directly because today women are working, getting out of the house every day to go and work, and you're building probably a house together or a business together. So should we really wait? That is the question now. Should we really wait to meet this cultural norm that says, before I take Shan, formally as a wife, I should pay 100 cows, for example, because she's from a certain region in Uganda? Or if we are ready as consenting adults, can we move to a register of marriages, for example, and seal the deal and get married, because you just need 260,000, for example, at the registry to celebrate a marriage? So the question on whether it takes us away from the cultural norms is a very delicate question, Buka. Because in my view, I think that marriage is no longer about what, for example, the culture says it should be. Of course, there are certain elements of culture that are important in marriage. But the world today is not the world 100 years ago. So we need to shift, we need to move. Because today, probably years ago, a woman would wake up and go to the garden and dig, and, because those were defined roles within the cultural setting. So probably then the cultural norms were relevant. But today, where I sit in a class with Shan, in a medical class, in a law class, in an engineering class, in a music class, and probably she's even a better student than I am. The job market today is employing, we are currently seeing female engineers. In the past, probably it wasn't something you could talk about. We are seeing female doctors. We get out of the house every morning and she goes to work, I go to work, we are making money. So that definition of a marriage, is it still relevant today?
I don't know.
That's how I look at it.
I kind of feel like there's some cultures that still hold a strong attachment to their roots. You get, and also the people who really do not fully understand this kind of marriage. Is it the civil registration?
Yeah,
The civil marriage. You get. So the debate is, are we giving up on our roots to adopt the new normal because times are changing, or are we getting our roots and then attaching it to the new normal and then find something that really defines us as African people? And also the civil marriage, where does it leave the parents? Because when you look at, is it called the cultural marriage or custom marriage? Where the parents also benefit something, like they get the cows. Look at the people from the West who strongly hold on to their culture. Cows are very important. And now you come to a civil registration where you have to eliminate all those phases. How do we deal with that? And how are parents perceiving that? Because what you're talking about is something we, the people living in the times of today, forget about the parents, see the world, where the world is at. But then the parent who's grown over time watching people give cows in exchange for their daughter. You get? Not because the value of the daughter is the number of the cows, but because it's what the culture holds. Where are we leaving these people?
Oh, very interesting question, Buka. I go back to what I said in the beginning, that it's voluntary. If you feel paying 260,000 shillings and sealing that deal with your, true love is something worth it, you don't need to probably go through all this hassle, paying dowry and whatnot. Go for it. But if you feel inclined to the cultural setting, there is customary marriage.
Yeah.
It's a matter of choice. Go through the customary marriage, fulfill all the cultural rights. If they say they want 100 cows and you can afford it, go for it. That's what I would say. But I think the bottom line is you shouldn't stay in a relationship that is not and we are going to see the danger shortly as we go ahead. I'm sure Shan will be asking these questions. The danger of staying in that relationship without, partaking of all these 5 marriages, by the way, are legal. There is that feeling of probably this one is more heavier than the other. Probably some people believe if I don't go to the church, I am not married. Or if I don't fulfill the customary, conditions, if I've not paid bride price, even if I've moved to a church, I am. Some people even feel, especially in Uganda, incidentally, that you cannot go to the church before you have
That's what I was
done a
almost
customary marriage. Yes.
Because I think you have to I was thinking, or maybe you have to present like a certificate to show that you done with customary and then you come into church.
You first kuchala.
Kuchala is nowadays, those people used to just go.
But of course, we are talking about now.
Yes.
You first kuchala.
Kuchala doesn't.
Then you
You're
go to
talking about
Kwanjula.
Introduction.
You cannot go
Kwanjula.
for the introduction before the kuchala.
A visit can be without taking things.
But there are certain things like a chisambi chachi.
Chisambi is for introduction, for baganda.
Yes.
It is what you
They take certain things nga bagenda
you
okuchala.
it is just out of your will. They don't tell you things to take for kuchala.
But you have to, out of respect,
Yes.
kubantu
But
omugenyi
it is-
yenna,
yeah,
any visitor, you
yeah,
carry something, a
yes.
package. Then you go for the introduction.
You negotiate. Well, like when you go for the kuchala is when you negotiate on the things that you're going to bring on the introduction. Yes. That is the reason that's why you go for kuchala.
I thought you go
when you
to...
tell you bring 10 cows, you tell them, but I'll manage 5. And then you be there negotiating
negotiate.
until you reach a conclusion.
I thought it's just for consent.
You go
Like we
there
are
to
coming.
negotiate on the things that you're going to pay.
Then you agree
like
and
as
then you-
bride price.
And then,
You get my point?
are they the ones who give you the date or
You choose the date. They ask
choose it.
you when you want to come.
Okay.
Yeah, so you tell them the date and the year.
And then
Or you can tell them the month and then you guys decide on the date.
Agree.
But it all comes from you, the guy's side. It's on the woman's side that decide the date. Am I right? Depending on the functions that I've been to.
and then,
Yeah.
and then the introduction follows.
Yeah. Introduction follows. But what I have here that I wanted to ask counsel is most Muslims do nikah on their introductions. So what my question is do they register if let's say you want to register your marriage, do you register it as a customary or a church or Muslim or Islamic?
Okay.
Because they are two combined marriages.
I was the best man on my friend's introduction, and next thing I know, buli kimu kiwedde.
They were Muslims.
Yeah.
Yeah, the share is always there. Actually, you guys, I was at my sister's, but they went to a different tent. It was
Actually,
not facing.
you get into the
people.
first we got into the house, and
first
the
we were-
people
were
we
in
came with
gardens.
were in the tent.
First, when we were in gardens, and then the tent that they had organized was facing. It was not facing their side. It was like the behind side of the tent. So they did nikah before the woman came out. So
That's what happened as well.
Yeah, because you have to first go for lunch before the woman comes. So they went together. They did nikah. And then, yeah, that is, they've been together for over how many years? They even have 3 children. But we've been waiting for a wedding, but
I think
even has a
that's
ring.
always it for the Muslims.
No, you can do what you can go to the mosque. I have a friend's auntie who did an introduction and still went to the mosque the following weekend.
Is that by choice?
Yeah, you can decide.
That's by choice.
Yes.
Yeah. I think from that discussion, you can really see that marriage is interpreted in diverse ways. There are two issues from our discussion that I need to pick out and clarify. Two questions that have come out from the discussion. The first question is the issue of the customary marriage, which I think is related to the nikah issue. Interestingly, I will use church marriage because I understand it quite so well to explain this. You see that ceremony in the church where you come in, you have all those, marvelous ceremonies, the brides,
That's where they say the
maids
vows
come
and
in
stuff.
and whatnot, and then they have very nice songs, and then the preacher comes on. Incidentally, all those things have nothing to do with marriage. The part of marriage is almost 5 minutes, a 5-minute session of whatever transpires in church. That is the part where you are exchanging the vows. That is the marriage. All these other things that come after are additives, just like the reception. Similarly, at the nikah, when you look at the definition of a Muslim marriage, there are so many things that can happen in a marriage, which I think Shan was calling a wedding. We are waiting for a wedding, you see, where you will have a bride coming in dressed with, then you have that colorful ceremony. Incidentally, the part which is, if you do all those other things, but don't do that part where I think the woman is asking for the gift, is that done
That's
in the nikah?
it's called what? Mahari.
Mahari. Exactly. That is done during the nikah, right?
Yeah, you
Yes,
can
it's
actually
done.
give them the mahari before. Like, you meet and then someone tells you the mahari, you offer it to them, then you're right to go. And
Incidentally, that small ceremony of the nikah with
what
the
happened
imam.
when I was a best man to my friend, we got into the house. So the parents came, the people who were responsible came. And then there's mosque leaders also came. So they said, amahare gaffe. They asked if amahare tugalese. I think this is something they talk about, a certain amount they discussed before.
it's not necessarily money, but someone.
Anything.
Yeah, anything that a woman wants.
Okay, this we offered money and was paid. Nebazibalamu bulungi, it was the actual amount, and they said amahare bagalese. So we proceeded. Nebajjayo papula.
Yeah. Never signing.
We also had passport photos of the man and the woman. And then abajulizi
Yeah.
also signed, and they were like, this is good. We went for our lunch. And ebisigadde byali bya kusamba.
Perfect. That is the marriage. Now, what Book has just explained, that is now.
So
if you do all those other things, but don't do that,
actual marriage.
Yeah, because it happens in all types of marriage. Even if it is civil, you get that certificate with both pictures, and then you sign with your how do they call them?
Witnesses, yes.
Okay, now my perception about marriage is just changing. It feels like we've been having commercials where one product is being advertised the most, and you feel like, okay, this is it. This is it. I didn't know we even have 5 types of marriages.
Yes.
I only knew there are just 2. Me, I only knew 2.
You didn't know civil?
Yeah, I've heard about civil. I just didn't know the details to civil.
But that means you didn't know it. Which
just-
marriages did you know?
I knew church marriage and civil marriage.
You're hitting yourself there. What about culture?
Is that also a form of
history.
marriage?
It is customary marriage.
Customary marriage, yes.
And it can be registered, right?
Yes, yes,
It's a
yes.
type of marriage.
But still, those people have priests who like.
No, they don't do it. Unless I've not seen priests come and take.
How do they do that?
They come maybe if they're friends to the people who are getting married. If they're friends to the parents. But priests on a customary marriage do not do anything, if I'm very sure.
That's
They
correct.
do not do anything.
Is
They
that
can
what
come
the-
to
They
bless
can
the
come
couple.
and actually bless the ceremony so they don't get any problems. Or even when it's time for food, they come in, pray
And
for the
eat
food,
food.
and then.
Yeah.
But they
Is
do
that
not
the kind of
play.
the kind of marriage where is it more like the arranged marriage, where this family has a daughter and this family has a son, and they're like, you know what, these people can't be together. The families meet, they exchange. Ngachiwedde.
No, customary marriage is a marriage that is according where you have to fulfill
So a tradition.
the customs of the lady.
Yeah.
The issue of the arranged
Isn't that the
marriage
kuchala?
is
No, kuchala is different. Kuchala is like, I don't know how it's that you're going
now
to meet
maybe to
the parents of the woman that you want to marry, and then they tell you what's the bride price.
now what the kuchala, if you are marrying a woman in the Buganda custom,
Yes.
they will talk about kuchala, kwanjula, because that is what
Actually,
the
the
custom
Buganda
talks
things are
about.
free.
When you go to the West, probably the West, they will tell you, what if you say kuchala, they will not understand you.
It's
For example, you
I
will
don't know
talk
it in-
about maybe
I don't know it
kuhinjira.
Kuhinja is introduction.
Introduction.
Let me say in Kinyarwanda, kuchala is like gusaba. No, kuchala is like gufatirembo. Like you go and ask.
So you
Mufate.
can see that in all these customs, there are certain things you need to. You might even find a custom where they don't do kuchala, for example. For them, they don't do an introduction, probably.
Because it's
Because that is what the custom provides for. So if you don't fulfill, for example, one of the ingredients, if, for example, you skip one and then probably you do the introduction without doing the other, then someone can argue that even if you did that thing, it was colorful and we ate good food, there was no marriage. The marriage is null and void because you did not fulfill this requirement.
Yeah.
Yes, because you're getting into a customary marriage. So it is important that you fulfill all the ingredients of a customary marriage. And there is a famous case, by the way, just to, bring this point home. There is a case which went to court. This was a Ugandan couple. I can discuss this because the case is in the public realm. You can even Google and see this case. Brian Serunkuma case. Where you have Bruno Serunkuma, you have a Ugandan Muganda who is getting married to someone from the same clan. So these people were saying, no, but it is our right. We can get married. This person is not my sister. So the issues of clan issues and whatnot, they do not in any way. Yeah. But the judge was very clear and he said that according to the Buganda custom, it is prohibited. You can't marry somebody from the same clan. So, but probably if these people had gone into some other type of marriage,
Could be very okay.
it could be very okay. So you can see that it is a voluntary action. If we choose as a couple, according to what we want, that, probably we can't do marriage without an introduction. It is abominable, according to us. Go for it. Do your customary marriage and that kind of thing. But the point here is that whatever choice you choose to go for, do not stay in that bufumbo which they call akawondo kakubyechi edirisa. That one is very, very dangerous.
Coming back to that case,
yes.
If these people had chosen to go
law.
for a civil marriage, it wouldn't be counted null.
Sorry?
If these people, the case you've talked about, the reference, if they had chosen to go for a civil marriage, not a customary marriage, would it be counted as a legal marriage, or would it be counted as a marriage that exists if they chose not to go for the customary marriage? Because you said the judge was so clear that the Bagandas do not accept this form of
marriage
under their customs. So if they chose to switch it up from the customary marriage to the civil marriage, would it be counted as a legal sort of marriage?
In my view, I would think yes. There are what we call prohibited degrees of kindred, and you will see that in the Marriage Act. If the relationship I'm going into is not a prohibited kind of thing, sister, brother, and that kind of thing, civil marriage, for example, it's very possible, and it will be a valid marriage. So it's important to know which type of marriage is the couple choosing to go for. It's a very, very important.
Another question.
Mm.
Church marriage. Is any church leader, does any church leader have the powers to handle a marriage ceremony?
Now for the church marriage, number one, the church has to be licensed. They start
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah.
We have so many structures that are coming up today, and people go in there. And in Christianity, they say the church is everywhere. Even when I go outside there in the gardens, it is a church because the church are the people. Now, for purposes of a church marriage, we are unlicensing a church building. We are talking about the structure. Yeah.
You mean the building,
The
the church
building.
itself?
Now, it must be licensed to conduct a marriage. We have cases where people have been married for 20 years and the court says, no, there was no marriage because you got married in a building that was not licensed. Yeah, you are
So it
20
is
years
the
married,
building
but
that has
actually you
to
are
be
not married.
licensed.
The building needs to have a license to conduct the marriage. When we are inspecting a building to issue it a license, there are certain things that we look at. Number one, is the building well aerated? For example, does it have windows? Does it have a door? Are there restrooms? We also look at the CV of the celebrant. Yeah, he attaches his academic documents, for example, the degree of theology and that kind of thing. And then we are sure that this is a place that should be licensed to celebrate marriages. Of course, if it is just anybody picked from the street to come and conduct the marriage, there could be issues. But generally, once we issue the license, we have looked at the celebrant as well and looked at their qualifications. So we are sure that it is a place that is worthy of getting a license to marry people. That license is issued by the Minister of Justice, and there will be an inspection report that shows that someone came down on ground, looked at the building, looked at the CV of the celebrant, and was satisfied that those premises are worthy of marrying of people. So the question on whether anybody can, if Booker can go to a church and be dressed in a collar and marry people is a very interesting question. But I know from my discussion, you have an answer. Yes, so once the church has been licensed, they can go ahead and marry the couple. But of course, I'm sure you've seen marriages happening in gardens, at the beach. We have what we call a special license. A special license is something you can come and apply for and say, well, we have our celebrant, but we would love to get married at the beach. So that beach will be given us, that's why it's called special license, because it's supposed to work for only that time when the couple is getting married. After that, you can't marry other people there. So we issue you a special license and you can go to your beach if it is the one that, and the details of that location will be stated in that special license. So you go to your beach, your gardens, and you can get married there.
Do you know there are a lot of people that organize destination weddings? And for example, I don't want to mention the place, but let's say we have a place at the lakeside. As people want to get married there, and we'll be like, me, I want to get married there. That's my destination wedding venue. And then next thing you know, they're booking the venue, and then no form of license has been issued. But there's a person coming to conduct the marriage.
No, that is very
The
dangerous.
person has to tell them what is needed. I'm thinking.
It's very, very dangerous because what they are conducting there is not a legal marriage. They are just like how I could organize a birthday party and invite people to come and celebrate with me or something. But it is not a marriage.
And we also have churches where people are like, you know what, our pastor, for us, we want to get married. You know, that we have a lot of small churches.
I understand what you're talking about.
You get-
Very, very dangerous. And incidentally, it has even crossed to the mainstream churches. Just because some structure is the Church of Uganda or Catholic Church doesn't mean it has a license. We have parishes that have not yet come to us to get licenses. So, of course, the problem is more... it's usually in these, Pentecostal churches because of the issue of structures where you have those issues of somebody came here and they were married. We all know this to be a church. It's not enough to know that the church is very famous in the area and it has married off very many people, that is not enough. Find out whether that structure is licensed. Otherwise, you'll pay millions of shillings, and today churches are serious. They even ask for 2 million and above to get you married. So please find out in this place, because we have couples, you can imagine staying in a relationship for 20 years. You think you are married, yet actually you are not married, because that if you got into a church that is not licensed and they issue a certificate, that certificate is null and void. It is like getting a fake land title.
Yeah.
Yes? And incidentally, that marriage will never be entered on the National Marriage Register.
That's what I was going to tell you.
Yeah. Because that name, that church is not in the system as a licensed church. Because churches are duty bearers. Once they marry a couple, they are supposed to bring what we call a return of that marriage to URSB.
The file returns.
Yes. So if the church was not licensed to marry people, definitely that church is not on the National Marriage Register system, and it will never, you will go with your certificate, put it in the briefcase, only to discover when the man has died, and you come to the Administrator General to get, the result share that the widow is entitled to. And probably the man was very interesting, had other ladies somewhere.
Share from the property owned by the deceased. Okay.
So you're there, you come and say, no, but everyone knows we even have a marriage, and you table your certificate of marriage there, and you're shocked to learn that all along for the last 20 years you've been in bufumbo bwakawundoka kubyeddiriza. You've been in an illegal union. You've been a boyfriend and girlfriend, in other words.
Who is authorized to issue out these marriage certificates?
The churches.
The church, but that church must be licensed to issue you the certificate. In other words, if you can also sign for me a land title, not so. But are you a register of lands? That's what I'm talking about.
So after signing for you a land title, I have to go to the registrar of land to do a transfer.
It's the registrar of lands who is authorized to issue you a land title. Okay. So it is a licensed church that is authorized to issue you
a marriage certificate. What happens after I get the marriage certificate?
So once you have gotten the marriage certificate, the church files what we call a marriage return. It comes to URSB, which is the custodian of the marriage register in Uganda, and it will file and say, Shan and Buka, we are married by Miracle Center. That's just an example. Yeah. So once we get that return, it is entered in the National Marriage Register, and we are sure. So at that point, when you need it, you are trying to recover pension, insurance. You're trying to travel abroad as a family. These embassies write correspondences to us, and they want to find out. Probably Buka traveled, is now in the US and wants to bring the wife along. And then they ask Shan to, show them that she's actually married to you before she can travel. NASA. And she doesn't need to go to NASA. The example I'm giving is where you were actually married. There was a ceremony. People even came and attended that ceremony. And, we ate food, and there are even pictures. But the church that we are in didn't have a license. So, of course, Shan doesn't know. So she will bring her certificate, table it before the visa official. The visa official writes to URSB, do you have this marriage? And what I'm talking about has happened, by the way. People even suffer heart attacks. And say...
was there. Actually, it also affects you when you're registering, when you're trying to register it. That's why I also wanted to ask you if, besides the marriage being, a church being licensed, does it, or by licensing it, you have registered it? Because when I was at URSB, the same we're entering data, and then they told us the church wasn't found. Or even when people were coming to get the marriage certificates, and then, is it called the marriage certificate or something from URSB? So you try to look for the name of the church to put in the details of the people that want to get to register their marriages and get a copy, but the churches are not there. They tell you it's not found.
Perfect. You will have a very good example from Shan here. So you have it, you have your certificate, it's trying to be entered in the system, but the church is
Yeah,
not
it's not
there.
found.
So it's very important that you find out. And how do you do that? You can simply do that by conducting a search on our marriage register. Yeah. Some churches are very transparent. They will even have this license printed out and put probably in an office, in a church office, pastor's office, or reverend's office. So you see it there when you enter. Others will not, but probably they are licensed. And others are masquerading to marry off people, yet they do not have these licenses. And this only applies to the church. For a Muslim, according to the
Sharia law.
it's not required for you to. A Muslim, you can even have the nikah done in this room where we are, in the studio. As long as you have an imam.
No, it's a sheikh.
A sheikh. A sheikh, I don't know whether it's a sheikh
yeah,
or
a
imam.
sheikh.
A sheikh will come once you have fulfilled all those requirements for the Muslim marriage. That's
Even
it.
nikah, if the parents are okay. Actually, they can even marry you if your parents have refused. They can get someone who can be your parent.
Really?
Yeah. That happens so much when you
Now I'm having thoughts of converting.
Yes.
no, it usually happens where like maybe the girl is not Muslim, but the husband to be is a Muslim, and then these guys so they love each other, but the parents are like blocking everything. So if a girl is okay with someone else coming, or if you can get married, you can do nikah even
Without
if you
approval of your parents.
yeah, you get someone who is going to be your dad or your parent or your
Which
brother.
probably in a customary marriage,
It can't happen.
probably it can't happen, because if the mkulu wechika says no, I'm not. So really, it depends on what type of marriage you have agreed as a couple
Comes
to
back
go
to
for. They are
choice.
these are 5 marriages. They are all open and they all carry equal value. None is more advantageous than the other.
I was going to ask a question. You've talked about equal values. What are the benefits of a civil marriage over other marriages?
Now that's what I'm talking about. I want to start by saying that all these marriages are okay. I don't want to promote one type of marriage over the other. But the couple, depending on their interests, what marriage would work for them? Yeah?
Okay.
Are we together? So, of course, a civil marriage in certain instances will work best. For example, if I'm Christian and my fiancé probably is Muslim, we might get trouble with the Muslim marriage or the church marriage. Probably they will ask one of us to convert before, which in a civil marriage is not necessary. Whether I'm Muslim and you're Christian, as long as we are consenting adults, will be able to get married. In a civil marriage, of course, it is less costly as compared to other marriages. All you need is 260,000 shillings. You'll get a date. You don't need to buy a gown or a suit or have maids and all that colorful thing that happens in a marriage. All you need is the 2 witnesses,
And you.
the husband, the wife, and you appear before a register of marriages and you'll get married. Of course, civil also is a bit... but of course now, for example, if someone wants to marry, has had a wife before. Yeah? Because you see, civil and church are monogamous marriages. So if you have...
church are
monogamous,
okay.
one man, one woman.
One woman.
So if you have had a lady, for example, wedded customarily, you did kwanjula somewhere, yeah? You cannot now move to the register of marriages unless if it is the same lady you're getting married to in the church or in the customary, because that would then be a conversion. If the customary was Shan, who you married, you see, and now in the civil marriage you are moving with Ida, that will be an invalid marriage. That's why even they will ask you, do you have any subsisting marriage? Because now you see the relationship you're moving into is the type of marriage you have chosen is monogamous. You understand? So if you are previously married, you cannot move into a monogamous marriage unless you terminate the customary marriage.
Customary marriage.
The civil marriage will be invalid. It will be null and void. And even if you proceed and they marry you, because people lie, and they give you a certificate of marriage, the lady, the one that is customarily married, can challenge. And these issues, unfortunately, come up when tensions have risen, like on issues of property. You're trying to distribute property, the man has died. You see? And then you come and waive your church or civil marriage when there is already a customary marriage. It will be clear. The Administrator General will tell you the legally wedded wife is the customarily married wife because the civil was an illegal thing because you were already married. So you can't move into a monogamous marriage. Now, you unless if you move with the same party, with the same woman or, So that is very important for me to point out. And the other thing that I need to raise is when you are in a customary, so the issue of choice now comes in again. If you know you want to marry 3 or 4 women, you see, don't switch into a monogamous type of marriage. Don't go for church or civil. Stick to customary. Do your kwanjula, the first one, the second one, the third one, because it is allowed in the customary setting. The moment you switch, if you start with the civil, for example, and marry 1 woman, that means you can only terminate, you can only divorce the lady you married in the civil institution for you to be able to move to the second person.
My question is...
I don't know if that is clear.
It is clear, but then I have a quick question to throw in.
So choice is very key.
The mosque or Muslims and also the church or Christians, these are religious institutes. One of the institutes, it's okay to like be in a polygamous marriage. And the other institute, it's not okay to be in a polygamous marriage. So when we speak about church and then the mosque, what are these kinds of marriages? Because when you say church, you're being more specific. Church is a monogamous
type of marriage.
Yes. It promotes that. Yeah.
One man, one woman.
We also have
the Muslim marriage.
Yes. What's the difference between the two?
Muslim marriage is saying polygamy is okay.
Does that make it a customary?
No, it does not. Because for the Muslims, if I'm not wrong, they say up to 4, for example, if you can manage. So probably if you move to 6, 5 and 6, for example, I don't know whether...
No, you don't. You have to have 4. Exactly. And actually, to have 4, you have to know the things still to follow.
Can you manage and that kind of thing?
If you have to, whatever you give to this house has to be taken to this house. So you're not going to give these people beans and then these people eat chicken.
So if you want your 12 women, go for customary.
Yeah.
Which doesn't have a limit.
Yeah.
It's also a type of marriage. It's there. Legal. Very legal. And by the way, those women will be legally recognized. And there is a structure when you look at the Succession Act where they will all benefit in case of anything. So they will all be able to benefit. But if the type of marriage you went for example, is a church marriage, and then you end up having 5 ladies, unfortunately, when anything happens to you, they will only consider that first wife who was married in a monogamous. All these other people are concubines. You are a boyfriend to them. Yes. You are a boyfriend to them, and they will not benefit as legally married people.
So for these 5 types of marriages, what's the hassle of getting a divorce?
It's the same, I'm guessing.
Divorce is uniform. Of course, now that question that you're asking is very interesting because you see now, if you go to the church and you talk about divorce, the priest or the pastor will tell you, for us, we don't believe in divorce. It should be one man, forever. One woman for life. Yeah? So again, I go back to the issue of choice. If, for example, because the church, according to the canon law principles, does not believe in divorce, it believes it is illegal. You are supposed to get married until death does you part. And these are some of the things you say in the vows. So if you know, for example, that you divorced a lady and you want to come back to the church because you're Christian, there are so many things that lead to divorce. Yeah, grounds of divorce. It could be, desertion, somebody deserted a marriage. It could be adultery. It could be cruelty, irreparable damage where you really cannot no longer see it. People believe divorce is something that only happens to bad people. Unfortunately, we even have famous Christians, very good Christians that we know, who have ended up separating, you see? So it is something that sometimes comes when you really do not even expect that to come. But of course, before you get into it, you believe, no, but what about the children? What about this? But unfortunately, this is a reality. It can happen. So I go back to the issue of choice. If you're a divorced man or woman, and finally you have seen that true love, they have come, don't bother the priest or the reverend. Because for them, they are enforcing their canon principles. They are saying, we married you to X, Y, and Z, so we cannot
unmarry you.
But there are 5 types of marriages lined up for you. You go for civil, because in civil, we will not ask you whether you are divorced. We'll even put, you tick, are you single? Are you divorced? Yeah? Because we want to know if you're divorced, that means you are now single, you can be married again. So you do your civil marriage, you come to URSB, or you go to the chief administrative officer, gives you a date, all the requirements will be fulfilled. They will marry you off. Then if you choose on the day of the wedding to give respect to your parents and that colorful thing that happens, which is not a marriage, by the way, you go and appear before a church. You get to a pastor, blesses the thing. They are not marrying you, actually. What they are doing is blessing. But of course, for us, the congregants, we will not know that they are just blessing you. But you go there, if the church allows. There are some churches that are okay with it. They bless you. Then you go and eat your food and what's not.
We've seen scenarios where, before I ask that, I've gone for a civil wedding, a civil marriage, and I want to divorce this woman. Where do I go? And what are the procedures? Then I've gone for a church marriage and I want to divorce this woman. What are the procedures? Where do I go? I've gone for a customary marriage and I want to divorce this woman. Where do I go? What are the procedures?
Buka is very interested in that topic of divorce.
No, I want to be sure.
Yes, but I've just said divorce is very natural, so we need to talk about it.
Because I've seen scenarios where these people are not staying together, or they divorced, you get. But then after one of the spouses passes on, let's say for the man passes away, a woman comes out of the blues and is like, I'm the legally married woman to this man. Even after a guy moving on and marrying someone else. So if I want to divorce a woman,
I've just said that, for church marriage, of course, divorce is not something that, they will emphasize because it is against the principles of the church. So divorce legally will be a process that you undertake through the court of law to separate with your wife. And for the church, probably they will say they probably can't marry you again. So that's why I say you do probably the civil marriage and then you go to the church for the blessing. Civil marriage, it's very okay. If you are married and you are no longer interested in each other, if the grounds for divorce are there, by the way, it's not automatic. You need to prove the grounds for divorce. It is either adultery, cruelty, desertion, which of course ultimately leads to irreparable damage where you can't sit and talk. So once you prove the grounds, court will issue with a decree nisi and then ultimately
scenarios
decree
where
absolute.
we are just bored.
Now, issues where you are just bored are very interesting. But there is something which we call irreparable damage, where people can no longer, the courts are a bit, there are cases where a court has said yes, you can separate if you can't sit, you can't talk, irreparable damage. But of course, there are courts where they are saying you must have the 3 grounds, and if you don't have them, will not issue you with the divorce. You either prove that the man was beating you up or the lady was beating you up, which is cruelty. You prove desertion, which we call animus desidendi. When somebody lives for probably about 3 or more years and they are not in the marriage, someone left, went to Dubai and has not been around for all that time. But
communication.
I don't know.
Excommunicado.
Or adultery. Of course, the ladies have challenged the issue of adultery because it was more on the main side, where if you get the man being adulterous, having women outside the marriage, but it was not on the other side as a ground. So it was successfully challenged as a ground. So there are judges who insist on proving that for you to be able to get the divorce. But we also have cases where courts have been flexible, where and you see, when it comes to the issue, when you are if I had pictures here, I would show you what I'm talking about. When someone is just getting married, those pictures you take in the gardens, on the lakeside as you're running, holding each other's hands,
carrying each other.
I know one of our
before I forget,
has hassled with delivering.
Before I forget, the ladies that are watching this podcast, that is the time when you're supposed to get them, ensure that the marriage is registered. That time, because things are still very okay. The man is still very comfortable with, having the marriage registered. So if
I'm somehow forced into the marriage, I can dodge the pictures and there's no evidence.
No, what I'm saying is that the pictures is just an example to say that things are still okay. When you are still in that car feeling of, but 10 years, 12 years from that time, you see people moving in a vehicle and they are not even talking to each other. Yes, so at that time it's very tricky because now, of course, you have amassed a lot of wealth, you have gotten a lot of differences, which is very natural as human beings. At that time, things are not as they were.
Yeah.
It's just like staying with someone in the same house for 5 years. You get differences, you get those times when you're like, then you'll get those times when things are okay. You even go out on a holiday. So the best time to have this marriage registered is at that time. So if it's a church marriage, make sure your church has filed your marriage by doing a search. Come on to URSB and we check. Because some churches don't actually file these returns.
Yeah.
They sit on them. So come, let's check. Don't wait for that time when you're trying to travel abroad with your kids and we surprise you by telling you the thing is not in the national marriage register and you end up missing a visa. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now you have met millions of shillings, but you can't move even with your millions of shillings because of one simple issue. A search costs only 25,000 shillings. Yeah? Don't wait when the man is dead and then all these newcomers in the institution. There are people we call newcomers. For you have been in the thing for the last 20 years, you get your salary, you buy bags of cement. You buy for the man, you're probably even paying school fees for his children. Sometimes when they don't have money, you pay. So you are putting in, and again, the guy finally, hits the jackpot and is having millions of shillings, and of course, you are not the other person he saw 10 years ago. So things have changed. They are now, I was going to use the name, which is very famous, but let me leave it. But we know a famous pastor around town who has since moved on from the other first one. Yes. So there is now that person who is a bit more colorful, more presentable at parties, more presentable in the church. And this one who was fighting all along is now on the sidelines. On the sidelines, So, you need to be careful. That time when things are still okay, register. Don't wait for this time. Because now, at that time, tensions have risen. Now, just imagine if anything happens at that time. How do you, if, for example, God forbid, the man dies, yeah, and this newcomer has come in, probably you are not even married, you are just cohabiting, you say, twezimba. So this newcomer has come in, probably you saw how fast the ceremony was done. The ceremony, because these ones are very knowledgeable, just don't move like today. They are quick. They say before
smart.
anything,
To Hollywood Day.
before you have to first finish this, then I will
Things
come.
first.
We have two so-called jembas that day.
These Kampala men who want children before. But me, I want to first get a child before I marry. What if you don't come? He also tells what if you
Coming
don't give
soon.
birth. We don't believe in those things.
Yes, so that cut time is a bit tricky because, of course, unfortunately, you will lose out because when you go to the administrator general, he will distribute property to the legally married wife, especially where you died without leaving a will. If you die intestate, they'll say who is legally married. It does not matter. If you say, no, but you see me, 20 years I've been in this thing. Yeah?
Yeah.
But if it was not a legally known marriage, you will not benefit, unfortunately. Maybe also, before I forget, I need to make mention that non-registration of a marriage does not invalidate it. If it is a customary marriage and you fulfilled all the rights of the customary marriage, it will still be valid. Yeah? But the problem will be the proof. How do you prove in those issues of marriage become important, unfortunately, they only become important in bad situations. When things are still okay, they look irrelevant. The discussion seems like, what are these people talking about? And I think this is really unfortunate because they only become relevant when problems arise. When you have lost your spouse, when you're trying to recover pension for your deceased spouse, and they're asking you for proof that you're indeed the woman, you're trying to travel abroad, and they're asking you for proof that you're indeed married. That's when at this time when things are still okay, it looks like an irrelevant subject. Yeah. But at that time when, we see accidents happening today, you saw the one in Nambole the other day.
Yeah.
When you don't expect something and all of a sudden someone has passed away and you're trying to recover, and you're going to court, they are telling you, remember, this man is no longer available to sign for his certificate. A dead body does not sign. This spouse or this man can no longer sign. They are no longer available. And so now you're trying to do things. You now start forging, going to NASA, forging signatures. You even forget dates we have seen signatures where the death certificate comes first before the marriage certificate. Yes, because now you're panicking, trying to forge things such that property abantu bomusajja tebabitwala. So that's the discussion on marriages is important only in those, but the good thing is we are now doing talk shows like these ones where people will now get to know the importance of these things, that it's not just katemba, it's not drama, it is real and things are happening out there. So people really need to take this very, very seriously.
So, Council, first and foremost, I'll thank you for always coming through whenever we call you to come and share. And you're always giving us insightful knowledge on the topics that we call you to come and share with us. We can't keep going forever. Feels like we've exhausted almost everything. However, we call upon people that watch our podcasts to contribute to this topic in the comment section. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Men at Work. The podcast is called The Kings and Queens Talk Show. As we sum up this podcast, I'll pass on 2 questions to you. Actually, 1 question to you, Council. Do we have a marriage bill, act, or law? I don't know if the terms I've used are the right terms. And can you briefly tell us what that law is, or briefly explain it to us? And the last question is, these people who get married to other people to obtain citizenship, can Shan get married to a Muzungu for the Muzungu to get citizenship here?
People do that a lot. Of course, you can acquire citizenship is another wide topic, by birth, by, we even have what we call dual citizenship. Yes, you can get married and get Ugandan citizenship by that. Or even abroad, you can become a British citizen just because you are married to a British. Yeah, it's very, very possible. But I need to emphasize that don't just marry a Muzungu to, get to get to America, to the UK.
The green card.
Yes. So it's because unfortunately, when you go out there, you look at the sky, and it is the sky you are looking at here in Uganda. You step on the ground.
The structures are different.
The structures are different, but that one, within 2 hours, it will be natural. You'll be seeing the buildings you see every day. You step on the ground, and it is the everyday ground. But unfortunately, when you go back home,
Why is the other ground called the
things
land
are
of
not,
opportunities?
well, as I said, marriage is a voluntary institution.
Thank you.
So if you go in for such benefits, it's also okay. As long as you are a consenting adult, they will marry you off to your 8-year-old Muzungu.
Muzungu.
Yes.
So we can have the marriage here and then I legally
Yeah, you
move
can
here.
conduct a civil marriage and move. It's very possible.
Yeah.
Very, very possible.
Okay. So the other question was about the law or the bill of the act.
Yes, we have a marriage act. The marriage act regulates the church marriage and the civil marriage. Then we have a Muslim and Mohammedan act, which regulates the Muslim marriages. And then we have the Hindu Marriages Act, which regulates the Hindu marriage. And we have the Customary Marriage Registration Act, which regulates the customary marriages. So whichever you choose to go for, the law will apply depending on the type of marriage that you have ceremonized, celebrated.
Awesome. Hands
But
down.
currently, maybe as we conclude, I need to emphasize that cohabitation is not yet legal in Uganda. So if someone is cohabiting,
Very happy.
that marriage
Extremely
is
happy.
very, very, very invalid.
It's not even
And
accepted.
please
Avoid it.
avoid it because there are so many dangers. Briefly, as we
Very,
conclude,
very,
I will
very
talk
bad.
about some of those dangers.
Please do, because
Number
we are
one,
concluding.
You will not be able to, acquire what you're legally entitled to acquire as a spouse because you're not legally married. And it does not matter how long you've been in that marriage. Whether you've been there for 30 years, you have children, you have what, if you do not have proof that you are legally married, you will not benefit.
You are
And
legally cohabiting.
I
It
don't
is not
even want
even
to call it
legal.
legally cohabiting. You will not benefit.
It's not legal anyway.
Secondly, registering a marriage, though
Yeah.
non-registration of a marriage does not invalidate it,
Yeah.
registration gives you proof.
You confidence
The last
in your
time I gave you an example when we were discussing issues of, the importance of having this paperwork. When you get into registration of a marriage, what you're doing is like picking your USCE certificate. Do you know, sitting for those exams, those very hectic exams, and you get 3 A's and they even put you in newspapers, but you never go to your secondary school to pick your certificate. While it will not invalidate your, sitting for senior 6 exams and getting the 3 A's that you got, if your OBs and OGs will always remember that very intelligent person who got 3 A's. If you never pick your USCE certificate, for us, the people that are employing you, we are asking for your paperwork. If you never show us the 3 A's on that paper, we will never believe that you got the 3 A's. You can't bring your picture in the newspapers, and wave it at us. We are interested. The conclusive proof that the embassy wants. And that's why they are asking URSB through a correspondence to for us to write back and tell them, yes, this marriage is registered, we have it. Is that registered paper? Yeah, so don't let the issue of non-registration of a marriage not invalidating your marriage convince
So not
you not
even
to
the ring
register.
will prove that.
Exactly. And finally, how do we register these marriages? I will take you briefly through the steps on how you can get the marriages registered. For the churches, they are duty bearers. So once they marry off couples, they're supposed to come to us and file marriage returns. But as I said earlier, some churches do not file. So it is important for you to come to us and do a search on our marriage register just to be sure that your church filed the marriage, If we find that it is not on the register, your church can write a cover letter for you and introduce you to us, and then we will be able to enter that marriage on the register. For the customary marriage, you go to the sub-county chief or the town clerk of the area where the marriage was celebrated. That sub-county chief or town clerk will issue you with a cover letter, issue you with a certificate which you bring to URSB with your IDs. The Muslim marriage, the district Qadi of your area where you got married is supposed to help you file with us. But sometimes the imams, the sheikhs do not really follow that up. So they can write for you a cover letter. They write the cover letter, attach your certificate and IDs, then you come with that to URSB and the marriage will be registered. You see? So it is a very simple process. Registering a marriage is very cheap. It costs only 35,000 Uganda shillings. And you will have your 25 actually. 35 I think is for certifying the marriage. And you'll have the marriage on the National Marriage Registration
Counsel, now
System.
another question.
Yes.
What is registering a marriage and certifying a marriage?
Okay, good. So when you register a marriage, you get the proof, which is the marriage return. They'll give you a marriage return stamped by URSB. But you can make photocopies of that return. Yeah, like you're probably submitting it in different entities, so you need copies. So you make photocopies, then you come back and we certify those. It's like if you go to campus and they give you a transcript or a university degree certificate. That certificate is your original. But remember, you're applying for jobs here, there, and where. So you want to keep using this certificate. So you can make a photocopy of it, and then you go back to the university where it was issued, and they will certify that it's a true copy of the original. So that is what certification means. Yes.
Okay, so something else I wanted to ask that I found out when I was at URSB is registering Islamic marriages. The system is there's a way the system was put. Like you cannot register a marriage where someone is below 18 years. But when we're registering marriages,
Yes.
most of the, I think I don't know how some people do it, but most of the time Muslims get their girls men.
Yes.
So you find out a girl is young and then they are married, but then their marriage cannot be registered because they are below the age.
Okay.
And we used to skip those marriages because you cannot proceed.
Exactly. Very, very good question. So when you look at the Uganda, let's start with the supreme law, which is the constitution. I know that question also crosses over to the customary marriages where young girls are being married. So when you look at the Ugandan constitution, the marriage age is set at 18. If I'm not mistaken, it is Article 31, 32 of the 1995 constitution. So once someone is below that age, it will be a bit difficult for you to get. But I know it will actually be invalid because it is an offense when you look at the Penal Code
that's
Act.
what I want to ask. Because
If
when
you marry
say it will
off
be
someone,
tricky,
it's illegal. Yes, because you can actually be accused. You have seen this.
So why
things
don't
in
you
news,
people report
in
these
news
marriages?
tabloids, and I've seen a story where I think police even came. Have you seen that story in the news where in a local tabloid where they were, I think about 3 times, where people were actually already in the middle of the ceremony, and I think someone tipped off police, and the police came and carried away the girl and stopped the ceremony. Because it is an offense for you to marry off an underage lady. Number one, it could be termed as defilement. You know what defilement is? Because now once you are married, the next thing is you are most likely going to defile this lady. And defilement has nothing to do with consent. That I consented to the sexual act. It does not make you innocent. So it's important that the lady has attained 18 years before you proceed with the ceremony, because these customs and our culture must be aligned to what our laws say. So if someone is below 18, I think it would be an illegal. I don't think actually it would be illegal for you to proceed with a marriage. Actually, even when you come to have it registered, one of the things we look at, as she has explained clearly, is the age. We look at the age. If someone is below 18, we will not enter that marriage on the system. So it's important that someone is above 18. When you look at the Ugandan constitution, when you go to the Marriage Act, they all set the years of marriage. I know even the churches, now we have the opposite, where churches are saying the consent age is 21 or 25 and above. If you're not 25, our church is not wedding you. Haven't you heard that and seen that? In famous big churches.
Is that legal according to the Supreme
Now,
Court?
I go back to the argument of the canon principles and choice of marriage. If a church is saying, according to our principles here, you need to be 21 or 25, then go for a church that can wed you at 19.
Okay.
Or go for a type of marriage like civil, where we will not bother you with those issues. So please don't disturb our pastors and reverends.
Yeah.
Because they have canon principles. They are saying for us to wed you, you must have been cancelled. We are asking for HIV
You have to do
test
for 3
results
months before you marry.
Before you marry.
And then you have to first go and then they see whether there are some different how do they call it? Genotypes. Are they called?
There are those that even go blood groups
you cannot
and
get
whatnot.
the blood groups now you can't get married.
Is that also
there are
considered?
different when you're getting married, some churches ask for those things from the hospital. Moreover, there are some blood groups that cannot, or when they get married, they give us over to people that have issues.
Sit in our counseling for at least 3 months.
You have to be actually Catholics. You have to attend Manya what? Or they have classes.
you have to like talk to
My auntie went for classes. I was the leader. Like,
yes. So those are those are canons that they believe are very key. That for us, we need you to know the HIV status of your partner before you appear before the celebrant. They have their own reasons.
So what if I'm sure my partner is positive and I'm negative?
You have to.
I'm okay with it.
You have to.
Then if the church says no, choice of marriage.
Yeah.
Go for a type of marriage or a church which will say, for us, we are okay.
Because it's not with all churches.
Yes.
Yeah, but then it's not with all churches. Some churches are okay, some churches are not okay.
The same argument goes for customary, where you get into some customs. I've seen customs where they say, when you are entering the house, have you seen that?
They're from,
when you are crawling,
which tribe?
You remove your shoes, then you crawl.
The Acholis.
Yes.
You go while crawling.
Then there are those who will ask you for 50 cows. Then there are those who will say, before we can get you married, bring for the father A, B, C, and D, and a coke and what. So if you are saying you're too Christian, you're not understanding what those things mean, then it's voluntary. Go for a marriage which is suitable for you.
Can I say, these people who are always very deep, might do their deep Gwamba side. So they didn't ask us for very many things. They asked us for were they 16 cows, and then we give them money. They asked you to go with like over sugar and then over crates of soda. So there were small things. We didn't carry anything. We went with our cars and the small things in the boot. So we forgot one sack of sugar.
And they sent you back.
The father to the daughter was, hey, we had to get money there and then and give it to them.
Yes.
Because the woman is already where the ceremony was already going on, the woman has come out. You know, there's a way they cover themselves. May you cover them over yourselves, even the sisters to the bride, doesn't. They all come covering, and the bride has to cry.
By force.
They tell you things. I'm telling you, Bayaro. They tell you if you don't cry naturally, they're going to tell you things that are going to make you cry until you drop a tear. If you don't cry, you have a problem. You have to cry by all means.
You guys, we
But
need.
the guy was very bitter.
Mm.
But they're the ones that they were confusing us. We were bringing like the things they were saying, and someone was telling us, you bring one.
Mm.
And then we went with one sack of sugar. What was it, 25 kilograms? And the crates of soda.
And they needed 50 kilograms.
They wanted another one, about 25.
You guys,
Until we got money and gave it to the dad, and then everything was now
you
okay.
and man and the marriages you've seen.
That's why me and we're getting married. I'm still taking my time.
Are you surely just taking your time or lack of opportunities?
I cannot lack opportunities. Come on, bro.
I'm just asking.
The variety of opportunities, but what?
What's with the change of
Very
the tone?
many. Very many.
But
now-
anyways, it's the Kings and Queens podcast. The Men at Work are cancelled. Dan Nasasra, thanks for coming through.
Yeah.
Thanks. For having me.
Unfortunately, this we could go on and on and
Yeah.
on and on, but we have to close this and we have to let you go prepare for Monday.
Yeah.
I don't have last remarks to say, but I'll ask you to give us the contact details of URSB for anyone who's going to watch this podcast or who watched our previous podcast on copyright. In case they just want to get in touch with URSB, kindly share with us the contact details. Shan, you sign out, then Cancel gives us the contact details, and then we sign out. Yeah.
Oh, I'm signing out first.
Yeah.
Okay. As we are signing out, just like Council said, some marriages are not legal. And that is the Kaundo Kakubia didn't say it is not known by the Constitution. And my dear fellow, how can I call ladies or females?
The people are
Please be
coexisting.
there in your rentals. Don't go and stay with these guys.
People are just having
Things are going to happen there, and then for us we shall be laughing. Please
you the who's.
love yourself first, because this one I'm not a but I know what I want. I'm not going to be a Kaundo Kakubia Dinisa product. No, far better than that. That's why I be in my house. No pressure, no nothing. So yeah, I sign out. Thank you for watching, and then feel free to comment. And then yeah, we get to learn from each other. Thank you.
Yes, thank you again for watching this. For those that have stayed until the end, we are really, really honored. Thank you for having me and for hosting me. It has been a very, very interesting discussion. For our viewers, I hope that you are indeed going to, get into a formal type of marriage. We have quite 5 types of marriage. Please make sure that you are legally married to avoid issues later on, in your love life. If you want to contact URSB further to get further details, please, you can call 0800 100 006. It's a toll-free number. There are people there Monday to Friday that are ready to pick up the phone, and, if you need further details on how to check up on whether your marriage was registered, or you want to get further details on how you can, get legally married through the civil marriage setup, or you need to get married at the beach, that has been your dream come true type of marriage. You want to go to the beach or to a lakeside or in some fancy gardens to have your marriage celebrated, you can reach out to us for a special license, and I'm sure we will make that dream come true. My name is Daniel Nasasira. I work with the Uganda Registration Services Bureau, and it has been a really, really good time with me here with these people. Thank you. See you.
We sign out.